Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com and the Pewter Report podcast. It is a Tuesday edition of the show as we continue talking about Bucs free agency and specifically a little bit of news that went down yesterday after Monday's Pewter Report podcast. There was a big trade with the Bucs trading Carlton Davis to the Detroit Lions. So we will discuss why did the Bucs trade Carlton Davis III? What do these ramifications mean? How does the cornerback room look moving forward? And we'll talk about the details of that trade, plus more Bucs coverage. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, SR Scott Reynolds. Scott, how we doing?
I'm doing good. All's quiet in the Western Front, as they say.
Yeah, a little bit today.
Yeah, there's nothing happening today. That's at least as of right now, 4 o'clock. There's nothing that this team expects to happen. So we'll see how free agency goes. Again, the Buccaneers, they're going to be bargain hunting. That's what they're looking to do, looking for value deals. They are spending money. They're spending lots of money, matter of fact. And keep in mind, there's 2 big contracts that have yet to be done that will take place this offseason. Tristan Wirfs is going to get a massive deal that's going to probably reset the tackle market. And Antoine Winfield Jr. is also going to receive a deal that resets the safety market. So I know a lot of Buccaneer fans out there, they want action. They want to see signings. They want, how are we going to upgrade our team? Well, it's going to happen, but you got to take care of your own players first. And keep in mind that right now, the Buccaneers have both those players, Wirfs and Winfield, under contract for this year with the franchise tag for Winfield, the 5th-year option for Wirfs, so they're not going anywhere. But they also have got pretty high cap values right now, $17.123 million for Winfield, just over $18 million for Wirfs. Those are numbers that Mike Greenberg is going to want to take down. And just like we saw with Josh Capel pointing out, Baker Mayfield's first year only hits the cap for $10.75 million. That's incredibly cheap. So they're going to want to lower those $17 and $18 million numbers to create some more cap room so they can take advantage of wave 2, wave 3 of free agency. Wave 2 is about to start, right? We saw the big deals, and there'll still be some more big deals trickling in today and tomorrow.
Today, kind of,
exactly.
Still first wave.
But wave 2 will happen when the market dies down a little bit. Wave 3 will happen after the draft when players will get cut because teams have essentially drafted their replacements.
Yeah, and for Bucs fans watching this show, if you got friends of other NFL teams that you're kind of talking about free agency right now, and someone's like, "Oh, like who'd you guys sign?" I'd say, "Hey, the Bucs signed Mike Evans. That's the best free agency signing that they could have done. The Bucs kept Antoine Winfield Jr." And your friend might be going, they're already on your team. And just go, exactly. Great players. They kept those great players. How do you think Giants fans feel right now, knowing that Saquon Barkley not only left the New York Giants, but is going to the Philadelphia Eagles? That's got to be a bit of a tough pill to swallow. So patience, Bucs fans. I think Jason Light, Jack Davidson, Mike Greenberg have done enough, not just right now, but in the past, like we talked a lot about on yesterday's show. They have all done enough to earn the right for all the fans to have some patience of whatever happens next, it's in the best interest of the team. Just give it a little bit of time and everything will work out because there are, and obviously Levante David is the next big fish to go get out on the ocean of free agency. And we'll obviously pay all of attention to that. There are a lot of other questions, though, about the secondary, most notably because that was the big news yesterday afternoonish / evening. The Bucs trading Carlton Davis III to the Detroit Lions. Now, the details specifically of this deal, Lions get Carlton Davis, and the Bucs also give them 2 6th-round picks, one for this year's draft and one for next year's draft.
Right.
In return, the Bucs get a 3rd-round pick for this year's 2024 draft, and just as important, we could argue which is more important, the draft pick or the salary cap room.
Right.
The Bucs offload Carlton Davis's contract to Detroit and thus save $6.3 million on their salary cap so they can go spread that free agency money to maybe Levante David, or that helps them sign someone else. So Carlton Davis, no longer a Buck, but I think he leaves behind a pretty good career with the Buccaneers, and I hope Bucs fans remember him as a really important part of that Super Bowl winning team back in 2020. And because that whole group, the Gravediggers, as we've kind of talked about before, that was a special group, and Carlton was a really important part of it. So good luck to Carlton Davis, and that's the move that the Bucs made.
Yeah, and I think too, this was a move to get a better player on the field. And when I say better player, I'm going to preface this by saying, if you had one series to play, if you had like one down to play, right? Who would you rather have out there? Carlton Davis playing cornerback or Zion McCollum? You would pick Carlton Davis unless he was in.
Yeah.
And that's the problem is you're paying this guy $14 million in base salary, which the Glazers don't have to write that check now. Okay, that's a big part of this too. There's cap considerations. There's also cash considerations as well. And so with Zion McCollum, it's a matter of getting him on the field because he'll stay on the field, right? He didn't miss a single game last year.
And he played a lot last year.
And
it's not like he's new to starting. He played a lot.
Exactly. He was a starter. He was either starting for Jamal Dean or starting for Carlton Davis. And so I think what the Buccaneers wanted to avoid this year is, and let's face it, Jamal Dean also has a propensity for getting injured. Okay. So
it does.
It's one thing to have one cornerback who might be more injury prone, but to have both of them, you're playing with fire. And thankfully, Zion McCollum was available to play. The problem is you can't clone him, right? And thankfully, there were a few instances where it was Jamal Dean and Carlton Davis being hurt at the same time. And so that meant you had Zion McCollum out there as a starter for one of those guys. And then it was like whack-a-mole. It's like the minute Carlton Davis got well, then you had Jamal Dean going down. And so Zion McCollum was in the fortunate position to be able to sub in for one of those guys. And usually it was one of them healthy and one of them not, outside of a few instances. But he got a lot of playing experience, right? I mean, he made some plays. He dropped an easy interception against New Orleans, which still haunts him. Yeah. He's going to get better in that department, but he really improved as a tackler. And he actually was better in coverage in terms of the completion percentage of quarterbacks throwing the ball at him as opposed to Dean or Davis. And for a large stretch of the season, up until I want to say maybe the Jaguars game, didn't give up a touchdown and then gave up a few at the end of the season. But by and large was the best statistical cover corner for this team last year. And you got to find a way to get that on the field because the arrow's pointing up for him. And the only way he's going to get better if he's out there making plays, man.
Yeah, reliability was key for Zion McCollum. And I don't know how Jamal Dean and Carlton Davis pulled it off, but they seem to not always get injured at the same time. One would be out, but the other one would be available. So thankfully the Bucs weren't in too many situations where Zion was your cornerback one and you had to scramble to find your cornerback two. But nonetheless, I mean, Zion did whatever was asked of him. I mean, he played the right side. He played the left side. In the playoffs, when Davis and Dean were both healthy, what did he do? He played safety in a playoff game, which was very important. So he's obviously very, very coachable. And part of the reason why the Bucs could make this trade with Carlton Davis going to the Lions is because of their trust and belief in Zion McCollum for how well he played last season. And absolutely, Scott, one of the best things he got better at was tackling because when he was a rookie 2 seasons ago, it was abysmal. It was absolutely awful. And teams such as the lowly Carolina Panthers would target Zion McCollum and not even target him in the sense of, hey, we're going to, force him to run down the field or we're going to run 15 yards at him. No, it
ran
was
the ball at him.
Let's run the ball. Let's throw a screen to our receiver and force Zion McCollum to actually go and make the tackle. So he got so much better there. I wouldn't say he's as physical as Carlton Davis, but I think he showed more physicality last season, which was important. And just getting those reps game in and game out, I think are so important. That's going to help him so much this year.
Yeah.
I do wonder about the interceptions. I know he could get the ball back in college, but had that drop earlier. I'm not saying he has worse hands than Carlton Davis, but I do wonder if he's not able to kind of ramp up the interceptions that the Bucs are looking for,
Yeah.
then what does the outlook of this cornerback room look like? Because yes, on paper, you like having Dean and Zion McCollum, but like we just said, Jamal Dean gets injured a fair amount. So
Sure.
I do wonder how the Bucs will attack the cornerback room, whether it's free agency, whether it's spending an earlier pick on a corner in this year's draft. Because let's face it, the Bucs could have had a coin flip with Jamal Dean and Carlton Davis for who they trade / cut / let go this offseason, but they had just signed Jamal Dean to that deal last year, so they had more money tied up in him, and so it would have made it way more difficult, and really just would have made no sense at all to let go of Jamal Dean. But, I mean, we're kind of seeing the same thing from Jamal Dean for all the reasons that we said Carlton Davis should have got let go.
Matt,
so that's big.
Exactly right. You're right. And to that point, I think that's why you invest another second or third round draft pick into a cornerback this year, right? You take that third round pick you got for Carlton Davis and you invest in a cornerback this year to eventually groom and replace Jamal Dean. So you have got Zion McCollum and cornerback X, as your guys. And I think that's how you operate. At the same time, cornerback, it's an attrition position.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is like, you're taking on running backs. You're leaping up. What do we saw Jamal Dean out in San Francisco jump up and try to break up a pass and come down wrong in the ankle and sprain the ankle, right? So it's a high contact position, and you need, and Ty Bowles even said this, you need 5 corners to be able to get through an entire season because of the physicality of it. And it was a little bit of a miracle that Zion McCollum was able to go wire for wire.
Yeah.
And I don't even think he came out of games due to injury. I don't think he even got shaken up. So
correct.
But you can't count on that. Just like you can't count on Rachaad White starting all 17 games wire to wire as a starter running back. That's why this team re-signed Chase Edmonds. We'll talk about Edmonds and Greg Gaines re-signing in a bit. But to me, I think that this is a sign they are going to draft a cornerback somewhat early, and then develop that player to eventually start opposite Zion McCollum.
And remember, and to your point about the health of Zion McCollum, when he was a rookie, he was injured in training camp, and I think that kind of slowed him down a little bit. So obviously these guys are humans; they are not indestructible. Sure. So you do have to get ready for that.
Yeah.
Thanks to
it wasn't zero. Real quick, just to put the period on the end of the Zion McCollum sentence. Coach Scott, I'm going to put my coach cap on. I'm going to tell him in the preseason. I'm going to say, here's the thing, man. You need to use this preseason to your advantage. And, he did have one interception last year in the preseason that was against the Steelers. It was that play right there. And you're going to be the starter. No, there's no looking over your shoulder. You need to be aggressive as hell and focus on getting the ball. And I don't care if you swing and miss and get burned. And
that's what preseason's for.
That's what preseason's for. Exactly. Like, who cares? Like, I want interceptions. I want you to make plays on the ball because these games don't count, right? But guess what? If you get interceptions and you practice it, you're going to do it. It's going to carry over into the regular season. You can play soft. You can play cautious. You can play coverage and not play the ball, and you can prevent touchdowns, and, you can catch. You can allow them to catch the ball, make tackles, all that stuff. But go for the ball. Be aggressive, get used to it. Go back to your Sam Houston State days where you were getting 3 interceptions a season throughout your career, and be that guy, because that's what this secondary needs. This secondary needs takeaways, interceptions. They're not going to get 31 like they had in the Super Bowl season back in 2002. Still a franchise record. I doubt that's ever going to be beaten. That's a ridiculous number. But you need to get better than what you have over the past couple of years. 13 interceptions, 12, 15. This team should be getting 20 to 22 interceptions a season. I think that's a reasonable number if you get guys in the secondary. If you get some more Winfield types, if Zion can live up to his potential, then you get guys that can take the ball away. Back in 2002, the Buccaneers had 5 players that had 3 interceptions or more that season. 5. That's a lofty number, but get more guys that can take the ball away. Zion can be one of those guys. He just has to practice it and not be afraid of missing. He's got to be able to live in his hopes and not his fears.
And the jugs machines can only do so much. I've
Yeah,
seen all the DBs go and do the jugs machine after practice. They're still dropping the balls in the game. Sometimes you need that live in-game reactions and
yeah.
everything like that to really get your point across. But let's get to the super chat from Paul Bowen. Thank you, Paul, for this $4.99 super chat. Who
Thank
says,
you, Paul.
"Sign Levante David, draft Kool-Aid McKinstry,
Yep.
get a center and a real running back too. Bucs will be looking good."
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's a good formula. Kool-Aid McKinstry might be there at 26. The interesting thing about that first round pick is that player really has to see the field. And
Yes.
you could make an argument that if Jamal Dean's going to get injured,
Yeah.
which hopefully is not the case. We don't wish that upon Jamal. But it's not a bad investment to go cornerback, but you still have some blatant holes on this team, primarily at left guard, and maybe you want the upgrade at center. So that first rounder, and maybe even edge rusher, that first rounder has got to be considered at least a part-time starter to really get the value. Yeah. And so I'm not ruling out first round, but you look at Jason Light, you look at Sean Murphy-Bunting in the second round, you look at Carlton Davis in the second round, you look at Jamal Dean in the third round. That day two has kind of been a sweet spot for him finding cornerbacks in the past. And I wonder if maybe that becomes a little bit of the priority there, or maybe you trade out of the first round, right? Accumulate more mid-round picks, and then like you did
that
with
way
Logan
you can
Hall.
find a safety and a corner in that type of situation. And the Bucs did trade out of the first round a couple of seasons ago when Logan Hall was their first overall pick, but it was the first pick of the second round. I was wondering if the Bucs go corner, let's just say second round. Let's just say first round they stick with the trenches, either offensive line or outside linebacker or something like that on defense. Why are we anointing, and I really like Zion McCollum, but why are we anointing him as the starter if, let's just say, they get a cornerback in that second round, like a Kyrie Jackson, who I personally have a draft crush on this year? What if that corner outplays Zion in training camp? Is it still too early because he is a rookie?
No,
all right,
that's fine.
Poor Zion. Poor Zion's just back in the same situation.
Well, maybe Zion beats out Jamal Dean. There's that too, right? Because you can't help the salaries on this team, right? Like Jamal Dean is making, I think he's got a base salary of $12 million this year. And by the way, they're probably going to restructure that contract and lower that cap number to create some more cap space this offseason. So look for that. But he's at $12 million. Zion is at what, probably a couple million. That doesn't matter because the salaries are what they are. And these players are going to be on the team. So whether one starts and one doesn't, that really doesn't matter. And as disappointing as it would be if Zion McCollum were to beat out Jamal Dean, because the cornerback you drafted, it might be better than both of them, right? Good problem to have.
Yeah.
That's okay. If it's what happens is when you have to play a $12 million starter and he's not playing well or he's always hurt, and then you don't have anybody on the bench that can really measure up. That's the problem. But yeah, good problem to have. You draft a corner who's better than both of them and he starts, and then it's all right, well, Zion, we're going to pit you against Jamal Dean and see what happens. Okay, let's play. That's competition.
And it almost feels like that it makes that third corner as important as finding that strong safety to put next to Antoine Winfield Jr. because of the injury history to Jamal Dean. You're essentially looking for maybe not an every game starter, but a plug and play starter for several games where you go, you don't want just the corner that starts for one game and you're like, please don't pick on him. Please don't pick on him. Because let me let you in on a secret, everybody. They will pick on the backup corner or a rookie corner coming in. That's just
ask Vernon Hargraves.
Yeah.
Most targeted guy as a rookie, it was 2016 with them? Yeah, 2016.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, most targeted, gave up the most yards, most receptions in football that year. It's tough living on the island like that, and that's how it is sometimes.
Let me tell you this: people do this thought exercise or whatever. Like if you were stuck on an island and you had like three things that you could, have with you or whatever, I'd probably have like a full season of The Sopranos on DVD. I'd probably have like my favorite food or something like that. But the third thing I would bring with me is Celsius energy drinks, which of course is the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. Check out their newest flavor and newest line of Celsius, which is the Celsius Essentials, which is their Blue Crush and their Dragonberry. Also, check out their original flavors, the sparkling orange, the sparkling watermelon, Fuji apple pear, Arctic Vibe is my personal favorite. So there's a lot of great flavors of Celsius. If you need to know where to find Celsius energy drinks, go to the Celsius store locator on their website. Punch in your address, and they'll tell you the closest geographical location where you could pick one up. Could be your convenience store, Walmart, Target, a 7-Eleven, or your bodega.
Bodega.
And once you keep going to your bodega and you love Celsius, but you want to get more, you want to get it in bulk so you're not making 1,000 trips back and forth, you can do that. Go over to Amazon, click on the subscribe and save, and you can have Celsius sent to your place of residence whenever you want. I'd recommend getting that variety pack. Variety is the spice of life. Have it sent every week, month, quarterly, yearly. You're in charge. You're the captain. Just make sure you're drinking Celsius energy drinks. Celsius, the official energy drink of the Pewter Report podcast. I agree, Paul Bowen. Arctic Vibe is the best flavor.
Okay, if I had three things to bring on to an island, and it was like deserted island, I would bring a boat,
Yeah.
a satellite phone, and some Celsius. That's what I would do.
There you
That's
go.
just me.
I like it. Let's get to a couple more comments here. A lot of conversation once again about the quarterback situation. Bat W talking about the draft a little bit. Max Melton,
Yeah.
TJ Tampa, and even Kamari Lassiter could be there at
Like all those
pick
guys.
57. Yeah. Max Melton very tight with Christian Izien, of course, with their playing days at Rutgers, has said that Christian Izien has a Michael Jordan mentality, which I think is a pretty good mentality to have, unless he's talking about baseball, but I don't think so in this type of situation. TJ Tampa, outside of just the comedy of having a guy named Tampa playing in Tampa, would be good. And then Kamari Lassiter, we kind of talked about the Georgia Tampa Bay Buccaneers connection with Todd Bowles and obviously a couple of other players in that secondary that the Bucs are fans of. But Lassiter, I think, would be a really good fit to this team. And can't go wrong with Georgia Bulldog players. I mean, the Eagles did it. I know the Bucs beat the Eagles a year ago, but overall building a pretty good roster. Can't go wrong with the Georgia player.
I agree. Can you imagine if Iowa State's TJ Tampa, who's a really good player, by the way, very tough. I mean, he plays very similar to Carlton Davis, just a tough physical player. But if TJ's on the field, right, and the crowd is going Tampa, and he's like, yeah that's me.
Every time we just turn Tampa, what?
Exactly.
Yeah. Bay. Exactly. Tampa, what? Bay.
Yeah. Like, don't distract him. He's trying to cover. Listen, those are some good names. The player out of the trio of Bulldogs that they interviewed in Indy, one of the guys that I like the most out of those three is Tyke Smith. I think he is a phenomenal player. Could play strong safety. Could play strong slot corner, number 23 right there. Tyke Smith, big time ball hawk, had multiple interceptions last year, forces fumbles, just a big time enforcer. And I think he would be a dynamite player to add to the secondary because he does have the ball skills. He's tough as nails. The long speed isn't there, but he did run under a 4.5, so he can help you out in short intermediate coverage. He can play in the box, right? He can be that slot. He can play, as a box safety. I think he would be a dynamic player. But really, any of those guys, Melton, Tampa, or Lassiter, I think would be good additions for Tampa Bay.
Thanks to Kathy Gillespie for this $5 super chat. Says, not the media throwing us under the bus saying no upgrades. Atlanta loading up similar to us in 2020. Winner of the NFC South will have a better record than 9-8. I like that part of it because the Bucs have been able to skate by with 8-9 2 seasons ago, 9-8
Yeah.
last year, that may need to bump up a little bit this season. And yeah, I'm with you. I wouldn't buy too much into the flashy signings, not even just by Atlanta, but by teams across
Hmm.
the league. If you go back and kind of look at the biggest moves over the last 4 or 5 years, it's not always the team that makes the biggest, splashiest signings that end
Hmm.
up having the most success. I mean, I go back to a couple of years ago, and this is Baker Mayfield related, but when the Browns traded for Odell Beckham Jr., and everyone thought, oh my God, like the Browns are
Right.
the new Miami Heat. They're the team to beat. They're the all-star team and everything like that. That clearly did
Yeah.
not work out. Look at, I don't know, the Raiders trying to get Devontae Adams. Oh my God,
Hmm.
the Raiders got Devontae Adams. Look at this. Look at that. Sometimes just because you make the big move on the
Hey,
first day of free agency, it doesn't mean diddly squat.
I can keep it local here in Tampa. Back in 2014, Jason Light's first year as general manager. Remember, he got hired by Lovie Smith. So Lovie Smith kind of picked the players that year. I
Mhm.
remember Lovey he's like, since he got fired from the Bears, I was down in the basement watching football all year, and these are the players I want. And they signed a slew of players. The big names were Michael Johnson, the pass rusher from the Bengals, Josh McCown, the quarterback. Remember, they traded away Darrelle Revis, right? And they signed Alteron Werner, the cornerback, to a big deal. And then they signed Anthony Collins, the left tackle. Spent a ton of money and didn't really get good results. Really, the best signing, dollar for dollar, was Clinton McDonald, who was like a rotational kind of nose tackle type.
Mhm.
But at least he played every year of his contract and was a solid player. But the other guys weren't. And the Buccaneers went from 4-12 under. I'm sorry, yeah, 4-12 under Schiano to 2-14 with Lovie Smith. They actually went backwards. They lost two more games despite spending like drunken sailors and in spending more than anybody in the division and probably in the NFC. So sometimes it works when you hit free agency, but more oftentimes than not, you need to draft the team
Yep.
to build a team rather than buy a team.
Yeah, no question about it. And that's why let's look at some of these re-signings. Mike Evans, first ever draft pick by Jason Light. Antoine Winfield
Yeah,
Jr. may go down as the greatest second round pick in Bucs history, or certainly close to it. Baker Mayfield, not a draft pick, but a bargain of a deal last year for
right.
$4 million that won them the division. And now he gets paid, but it wasn't like there was proof and results into spending that amount of money with Baker Mayfield. It wasn't, hey, you were good on another team. Now we're going to throw you that money and hope that you do just as well in a new system with a new quarterback or with a
Yeah,
new offense and everything like that. They brought him in for cheap, saw what he could look like in a new system with new players, with the Hall of Fame player and Mike Evans, and thus got rewarded with that contract. So not a draft pick, but kind of like similar along the lines of seeing what you got in a player and then rewarding him after he makes all the right plays. So I think Bucs fans should not worry about it at all whatsoever. Plus, you're gonna be more excited if Levante David signs with the Bucs than if they, get an interior offensive lineman or a strong safety not named Jordan Whitehead or someone
yeah,
like that. So
yeah. And actually, let's talk about Whitehead for a second
yeah.
because they didn't start free agency thinking that, oh, we're going to target Jordan Whitehead, right? That was not
Mhm.
in the team's plans per se. At the same time, though, you never know what's going to happen in free agency, and there was a slew of safeties that hit the market right before it opened that added more names and bodies to that list. Both of the safeties in Seattle, Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams, hit the market. Justin
Yep.
Simmons from Denver hit the market. And some of those guys are still available. You saw Geno Stone sign with the Bengals from the Ravens. So you're starting to see some movement there at the safety position. But right now, there's a lot of safeties that are still out there. Keanu Neal is a player, former Buccaneer,
Mhm.
got cut by the Steelers, or not re-signed. So there's a lot of safeties out there. And as D. Jones says, hope we bring back Jordan Whitehead. He's a big time favorite. One of the better middle round draft picks by Jason Light, 4th round pick back in 2018. And then you look at Todd Bowles loves
Oh yeah.
Jordan Whitehead, right? But there just wasn't enough money. And what did Whitehead sign for? 7 million, something like that with the
Yeah,
Jets?
right around those numbers.
Yeah. So I think if the number gets down to 4-ish, right, then maybe they take a look because there is some value. They went super cheap last year. They tried to do the bargain hunting thing with Ryan
They had
Neal.
to.
They had to. You're right. They had to. Now they can afford to spend a little bit more money and maybe double that. Instead of spending just under 2, maybe you spend 4 and you say, Jordan, I know you didn't get the contract you wanted. You're ticked off. And see, here's the thing, too. We talked about this yesterday on the show. But when you've got the fact that Florida has no state income tax, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's say it's the Jets that want to re-sign him, or let's say it's the Rams want to sign him. Okay, there's heavy high state income tax in California, probably around 10% or something, to where if you said, hey, we'll pay you $4 million, or let's say $4.5 million here, and they're offering $5.5 million. I'm not good in math, but let's just say that those contracts essentially are the same because there's no state income tax that Whitehead would have to pay here.
Exactly.
That could be a differentiator between those two opportunities and prompt him to take less money, but actually it's the same money because he's making more money there, but he's got to just pay more out there in the state income tax in California where it's much higher. So that is, and you know what? I can't believe the NFL has not done something to make the playing field a little bit more even because they have an even cap, but there's a few states, and I might be wrong about these, but I believe Tennessee has no state income tax.
Correct.
I believe Nevada has no state income tax, so the Raiders are out there now. And then Florida, there's one of several states that don't have state income tax.
Texas is another.
Yeah, possibly. But there's a lot of states that have it, and the northern states, they've got a lot of it. Like it's a big number, close to 10%. So that's a huge advantage for Tampa Bay. And because even though those deals may be similar, $4.5 million down here in Tampa is the same as $5.5 million when you consider the state income tax. Well, guess what? It's not on the salary cap, right?
Yeah,
that's $1 million more that the Rams have to pay than the Bucs have to pay. So it's great living in Florida for a lot of reasons.
Location.
Bingo.
The Bucs might as well use it to their advantage. And a great thing that helped out the Bucs was the fact that more defensive backs and more safeties became available on the free agent market when that started yesterday. Because at first, the cap projection or a contract projection for Jordan Whitehead was around $6 million per season, and even then, the Bucs I think would still at least consider it. And if things fall the right way, you can go out and get him. But now, when all these other players become available, and you see this player sign and that player sign and things of that nature. Well, now Jordan Whitehead still has to find a team, and it's not bidding over him. It's him trying to find a market. And what better market than a team that he already played for, won a Super Bowl with, has a great relationship with the head coach, knows the defensive system, brings an element to the Bucs defense that's kind of been missing a little bit with that physical. They had a physical safety with like Keanu Neal, but Jordan Whitehead, I think we're all in agreement, can do a lot more.
Better player. Exactly.
Better player, brings that physicality. You heard what Todd Bowles said after the first week of the season because Jordan Whitehead had that big 3 interception game for the Jets against the Bills, and he was like, I am so happy for Jordan Whitehead. I always root for all of my guys that I used to coach and things of that nature. And Callie Bucks, thanks for the $1.99 super chat, who says, Whitehead's big hits brought a much-needed energy. Absolutely. Even in today's NFL where it's difficult to get a good hit without looking for a flag, I think everyone in this podcast, watching this podcast, still remembers that forced fumble that he had on Aaron Jones in the NFC Championship game to start the second half, and then it led to a Bucs touchdown. I think like 1 or 2 plays later. On a touchdown.
That's the wrong Aaron Jones pick. I have Aaron Jones hurt, and I thought that was the one where Whitehead.
Sorry, Aaron Jones.
Sorry,
I know it's
Aaron
been a tough
Jones.
week for him. Got caught by the Pack. Well, he signed with the Vikings, so he's good now. But
where he's going to get a lot of work because Sam Darnold's the quarterback up there. So.
Yeah. Hey, who's to say Sam Darnold doesn't have a Baker Mayfield type of renaissance?
Kevin O'Connell's hoping.
Yeah, I mean, he's got Justin Jefferson to throw to. Baker had Mike Evans. Anyway, that's a discussion for another day.
Yeah.
And Jordan Whitehead, I know originally it was like, oh, he's more physical. He can stop the run. What can he do as the defender? I get that he had 3 interceptions in one game. And then he had one later in the season against the Raiders. I think he can help bring that interception number up just a little bit. But I'm all for bringing back Jordan Whitehead if that number drops down to 4 million, like you were saying, Scott, because I mean, he's got chemistry with the guys in the room.
I'd be fine at 5 million. It's not my money though. My last name's not Glazier, and nor is it Leiter Greenberg. But I'm just saying, you, if you don't have a good safety opposite Winfield, and the Bucs didn't last year, like how many big plays did Ryan Neal give up? You know,
a lot.
I'm not trying to pick on Ryan Neal. He's a good guy, but I mean, we have to evaluate. We got to look at the film. I mean, the touchdown against the Lions was huge. The catch and run with Kyle Pitts that put them in field goal range cost them that game, right? I mean, so there's others that I'm probably forgetting because I'm 51, but and don't want to remember. But you need, gosh, if this team has a competent safety, doesn't have to be an All-Pro or a Pro Bowler opposite Winfield, just a steady Eddie, and that's exactly what Jordan Whitehead is. Plus, he's got a little bit more splash than most Eddies do. So, yeah, bring him back. He knows the scheme. He's going to be pissed off. He's going to be ticked because he's not getting the big money.
Yeah. I mean, he's posting Bucs clips on social media of like plays that he made. So, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to bring him back to Tampa Bay. Thanks to Mike Wells for this $20 super chat. You want to talk about a Jordan Whitehead type of hit? This is a Jordan Whitehead type of super chat.
Appreciate it.
So thank you to Mike very much, who says, awesome show so far, Matt and Scott. Thank you very much again.
Yep.
Does it also say how much faith Light and Bowles have in guys like Watts, Ramirez, Isian, and Merriweather to take the next step, and that's why he's doing a light approach to free agency? Well, going back to the combine, I mean, he spoke very highly of Marquise Watts and Jose Ramirez. He was asked about Izzy and Merriweather to a degree. I obviously want the Bucs to draft an outside linebacker or look at one in free agency, but I really want to see what Marquise Watts can do in a second season. And Christian Izzian is the other one that I think can really move the needle for the Bucs in the secondary next season. Like, will he stay as a nickel corner? Will they move him to cornerback? Will they put him as like a free safety behind Antoine Winfield Jr., but maybe he gets a little more playing time as Todd Bowles deploys Winfield in a crazy amount of ways, because we know Winfield can kind of play everywhere. And Merriweather, what type of step forward does he make this season? It's a lot of good questions to have, but Watts and Izzy in particular are guys that kind of move the needle to me, because Izzy kind of burst onto the scene, had the interception against the Vikings, as you saw there. I think he has great hustle. I think he is a relentless tackler, doesn't always get the job done, but he has that pursuit that you love in a player when attempting to make the tackles. So, yeah, I mean, I think last year, just relying on rookies and finding undrafted free agents that made an impact, that play by Marquise Watts, I believe, led to a turnover.
Yeah.
I want to see him in more third down pass rushing situations. I'm excited for that group right there. And again, it's a credit to everything that the Bucs front office has done.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is just ask Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke about Marquise Watts. And the thing too is sometimes there is, how do I say this? Sometimes there's a little bit of contention between coaches and the front office, right? Because the front office, their job is to get the players for the coaches to use. Emphasis on the word use. And then sometimes the coaches don't use those players. And sometimes it's the head coach. Sometimes it's the coordinator. Sometimes it's the position coach. And I'm not pointing a finger here, but it was one of those three that didn't play Marquise Watts enough last year. And so, you know what? There's a way to, it's called natural elevation, where sometimes you don't have to really do anything and you can get elevated, right? And for example, if you take Shaq Barrett off the top of the depth chart, everyone naturally rises up the depth chart. That's natural elevation. That means you didn't do anything to really You're just like you're on the roller coaster, and it's your turn to go up and start the ride. And I think that's kind of what we've seen a little bit. And maybe the Buccaneers add a pass rusher in free agency. Maybe they just draft one. But I think this is an opportunity where Marquise Watts, if you kind of clear the field for him a little bit, if you thin the herd out a little bit, then you're kind of forced to play him. And that means Cam Gill probably not going to come back. It's another guy, right? So you're taking a guy from the bottom of the depth chart and the top of the depth chart. And now that's more opportunities for Marquise Watts because, he's not the last man standing, but now it's Joe Tryon-Shoyinka in the final year of his deal. It's Anthony Nelson in the final year of his deal, right? So they're pretty excited about this guy. And I think they made a mistake by not playing him more, especially in the DPR, the designated pass rush situations.
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern with Todd Bowles. And I have to have a conversation with him about this. And of course, he knows more football. He's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. So I'm not about to say I know more than Todd Bowles or I know better than Todd Bowles. But my suggestion to Todd Bowles would be to stop with the static rotation, right? And you've seen it, Matt. You watch the games. Yep. Pewter people, you know what I'm talking about.
Here comes JTS and Anthony Nelson.
Yeah, it's these two guys, right? And we're going to give them a series, right? And then we're going to rotate the next series these guys in. Why? On first down, if it's going to be a run down, they're giving you a run formation. I want Will Golston in there, right? Yeah. If it's a situation where they're going to be, in nickel, I don't want Will Golston in there. So I just don't know why they don't do the same thing with their outside linebackers. Put them in positions where, hey, it's 3rd and 13. Guess what? They're probably not going to run a draw. They're probably going to throw the ball. So put some guys on there, your best pass rushers, and let's see what can happen. And Marquise Watts, very small sample size, but his pass rush win rate was like 22%.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
My whole thing is like
Yaya Diaby, who I love. Yaya Diaby. We all do, right? Friend of the program. But he had 7.5 sacks. His pass rush win rate was less than 10% last year. That's an area he's got to step up.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'm with you. More Marquise Watts.
And I don't think there's any shame in saying we got a guy that is a 3rd down pass rusher. That's his main goal. That's his main objective. There are plenty of teams that have that. So where is the shame in using that with Marquise Watts if he proves that he can kind of do it efficiently? Yeah. But to your point, the pass rush win rate is very important. I know a guy that just got $17 million per year. His name is Bryce Huff. That's what he was doing for the Jets and just got a big payday when everybody knew all that he does is go after the quarterback. So I don't really want to hear from Todd Bowles, Marquise Watts needs to do better stopping the run, and then that way he'll get more playing time. Nah, put JTS in those situations because I think JTS is actually pretty solid at defending the run, or at least got better from what he used to be. And then put in Marquise Watts on 3rd down. Now he's got to prove it in training camp. He's got to prove it in the preseason, which he did last season. He was manhandling people last year, and then he got a little bit of playing time. Let's see that continue and improve this time around.
I would co-sign on this 1st round pick in a heartbeat. Laiatu Latu from UCLA. I really like this guy's game. He's not the most overly athletic guy. I think JTS is probably a better athlete than Laiatu Latu, but this guy has got a more well-rounded game, more instincts, smoother player, can do it all, dropping coverage and all that. And I think that was kind of the cop-out that really kind of ticked me off about what Bowles was saying about Marquise Watts is he's he's got to learn the defense. He's got to learn his fit. And part of that, from what I understand, was he's got to drop in coverage better. Okay, well, maybe don't ask him to drop in coverage when he's on the field. So, you know what I'm saying? It's like you're Batman. You've got your utility belt with all these different weapons here, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe don't use this one. Maybe when you have Marquise Watts out there, don't ask him dropping coverage if he's not that good.
And that's not a huge advantage for the offense either, being that guy's not dropping, so we don't have to worry about that. Because if he's coming after you, it doesn't matter anyway.
Right. So,
another cool thing about the draft, though, there are many cool things about the NFL draft, but another thing that just got even better is that you can bet on the NFL draft. And if you are going to bet on really anything, we got March Madness coming up. Make sure you do it over at mybookie.ag using the promo code Pewter. That's PEWTER. Get a first deposit cash bonus in your account. Free money in your account. Even if you learn from Plant City Math, you know that is a heck of a deal. So head on over to mybookie.ag. Check out all the great bonuses and deals that they have. Some parlays you can get into for all the big sports. Baseball's coming back. NBA and NHL's in full swing. Like I said, you got March Madness coming up next week, and they got all different sports as well. Check out their online casino, too. You don't even have to leave your couch. It's like you're being right there playing craps, blackjack, roulette, all that fun stuff. So check out mybookie.ag. Use that promo code Pewter, PEWTER, and get to playing.
Deebo Samuel switching jerseys to number 1. He is now number 1.
Interesting.
In San Francisco, apparently. So
interesting.
I read that on the interwebs today.
All right, there you go. Scott, one thing we haven't talked about just yet, we mentioned it briefly, but I guess we can dive into it a little bit more, is the Bucs re-signed Chase Edmonds. Yeah. He is back with the team again. I've been on the record saying this, but I'll say it one more time. I like Edmonds on this roster. I like him more as a running back 3 than I do a running back 2. So while I do like the move for the Bucs and for Chase Edmonds, obviously, I do want to see them continue to comb through all the options that they may have, whether it's finding another veteran running back to bring in, whether it's addressing running back in the draft. I think Chase Edmonds can be a good veteran presence with this team. He's a very personable guy, but he does get injured a fair amount, and I think if you put him in RB3, he's obviously not going to see the field as much. Maybe he just does a third down type of thing, but that will help preserve him in a situation if Rachaad White gets hurt or something happens where he needs to play a little bit more. So I hope this doesn't stop the Bucs from looking at other options and just saying Chase Edmonds is running back 2, because I still think he's very capable, especially as a receiving running back in the passing game. But your thoughts about the move and what Tampa Bay should do with running back?
I agree with you. I think you nailed it. I like having him on the roster. I think he's better as RB3 than RB2. And the fact that Sean Tucker really couldn't beat him out says a lot, maybe about Sean Tucker. And we kind of heard a little bit of frustration from Jason Light at the Combine. He said, he needs to have a big season. Like he said it sometimes is not what you say, it's how you say it. And, the bloom is off the rose with Sean Tucker. He went from being this, we can't wait to see this guy in the field.
Yeah.
Let's just get him healthy, to, okay, you saw him and you really weren't that thrilled with what you saw. And granted, he's an undrafted free agent too. I just think he got a little overhyped by the Bucs brass, which in turn, filters to us, which it's our job to relay what we hear and also what we see. And we told you what we heard, which is, Sean Tucker, he might be RB2 and all this. And then what we saw was, no, not really. He's just not the guy. But I did like what I saw from Chase Edmonds in spurts. But I like him better as RB3. I think that if Rachaad White goes down with an injury, then the running game comes to a screeching halt. And this team is in some real trouble because it's very lopsided at this point in time. And it's not the worst thing when you have Mike and Chris and Baker, but it's just better with balance, right? You're not Patrick Mahomes in terms of being able to run the offense through you. I don't think that this offense runs through Baker Mayfield, but Baker's better with the running game. And I do agree that they need another good running back. And Matt, was it your mock draft and your battle plan where you had Kamani Vidal?
That was, yeah.
Great pick.
Thank you.
I like him a lot. Ray Davis, I like the player, but there may be some instances where he's not the right guy for Tampa. Marshawn Lloyd from USC was a player that they did interview formally. I believe they interviewed 2 backs that at least we know of formally at the Combine. Marshawn Lloyd and Ray Davis were the 2, but I think Lloyd might be the preferred back. But another guy they did an interview informally was Kamani Vidal, and I love his game. He's a tank. We met him at the Senior Bowl. I said, dude, you have an incredible number of carries.
His stats are off the charts. And granted, like he's in a different conference, not as much competition, but like He broke the Troy all-time rushing record, the all-time
Yeah.
single-game rushing record, and he had like 3 games of over 200 rushing yards. I really don't care like what conference you play in. That's like extremely difficult to do unless it's like Derrick Henry against high schoolers.
He's built like a little
like
tank. He's like 5'8", 215 pounds. And I remember,
not insane speed, but quick enough. Yeah.
I mean, he had over the last, well, in all 4 seasons, he totaled 781 carries for 4,010 yards, an average of 5.1 yards per carry, 33 touchdowns. But really, the last 2 years, 231 carries as a junior and 297 carries as a senior. That's going to scare some NFL teams away.
Yeah.
Just because there's a lot of mileage on the tires. But A, the guy did not miss a game. B, and I asked him about this at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, do you think that works against you? He's like, I don't know, man. Like, it should work for me. Like, I've proven I'm a workhorse. I don't get hurt. I'm in incredible shape. I don't eat fast food. I'm on a great diet. He has a pro's mindset, Matt. And I think that's one thing that you look at the consistency, too. The 516 yards, the 701 yards, the 1,100 yards, then the 1,661 yards. And he did it averaging at least 4.6 yards per clip. And he's a decent receiver too. He's not going to like blow you away, but he had 92 catches for 700 yards, 7.6 average and a touchdown. That's pretty good. I think he would be a really good RB2 in this league.
Plus, if he gets drafted to the Bucs, like for all the concern about the amount of reps he had, well, he's coming to a team where Rachaad White's the starter, and there's not going to be as much wear and tear on him. Thanks to Salty Buccaneer for this $1.99 super chat, who says, "Let's not overthink RB2. Draft Trey Benson."
Okay, here's the problem with that, and Matt, you just said it. Rachaad White is the starter. Okay, so you've got your starter, Trey Benson, probably going in the late 2nd or early 3rd round.
That's exactly.
Okay, so you're going to blow a premium pick on a guy that's going to be RB2. That's not good value. It's not when you've got holes in this roster at strong safety, at left guard, at edge rusher, at outside corner. Like, you need more players that are going to see the field more than RB2. I like Trey Benson as a player, but for that reason, you really can't draft a player like that. That's why we're talking about guys like Marshawn Lloyd, who's probably a 4th rounder, and a guy like Kamani Vidal, probably 4th, 5th, 6th rounder, depending on where the running backs go. It's not a great running back draft, but at the same time, I think I hate to say this because I love running backs. I grew up in 80s football, right? John Riggins, even into the Emmitt Smiths. I was there for Franco Harris and Tony Dorsett, Walter Payton, guys like that. So I love good running backs, but I can't be blind to the fact that they're kind of plug and play. They're kind of dime a dozen,
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say about Trey Benson, is that he's probably a 3rd round pick. I don't think the Bucs should be wasting a 3rd round pick on a running back. As talented as he is, as much as I really enjoyed watching him, I don't think the stars align for Trey Benson and the Buccaneers, even though I would like it a lot.
Yeah. Well, listen, the stars might align for you if you're looking to buy a home. If you call this guy right here, Eric Gross in the Eric Gross Group, let the stars align for you when it comes to finding the right home. Or maybe you're looking for somebody to sell your home and have those stars align where you get the right amount and you cash out with the most value that you can get for your house. Spring is here, folks. At least it is in Florida. I don't know about around the country, but we've had some beautiful weather here. That means spring cleaning. That means, getting ready to move. Listen, I'm going to tell you right now, it's free agency season. You need to sign Eric Gross. Let him be your top signing when it comes to your realtor. He's the official realtor of Pewter Report for a reason. Their clients are not just transactions, they're lifelong friendships. Don't let the stress of buying or selling a home keep you out of the game. Here's what I want everyone to do. Go to housesnfla.com. Even if you don't need to buy a house right now or don't want to buy one or don't want to sell yours, just check out the website, because there might be a time where you do, and at least you'll have some knowledge of what houses in Florida, housesnfla.com, is all about. It's the Eric Gross Group website. It's got all of their inventory. It's got information about their open houses. You can also find Eric and the Eric Gross Group on Facebook and Instagram at Eric Gross Group, or give Eric a call at 513-907-4271. That's 513-907-4271. No matter where you are on your homeownership journey, you're going to feel welcome with the Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report.
And after you check out the Eric Gross Group, make sure you head on over to pewterreport.com and please follow us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. And of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment to this video after this episode is done. We got the podcast 4 times a week, various clips, especially in season when we're at the Bucs facility and at all the great events we go to, like the Senior Bowl and the NFL Combine. But we got a lot of other content too. We've had a bunch of reaction pieces to a lot of the big moves the Bucs have made, of course, with Baker Mayfield and the trade of Carlton Davis. And you guys have been great at watching those videos and leaving your comments and stuff like that. So there's plenty of more of content to come, plenty of more of conversation to have with the Buccaneers for this upcoming season. We got a late super chat from Salty Buccaneer. Thanks for the $4.99 super chat. Who says, to add on my Benson point, I appreciate you sticking with this.
Yes.
This is how you feel. You're going to stay with it.
Yep.
I respect it. Just thinking ahead, we're going into year 3 with Rashad. He's gone after 4. You don't pay RB1s. You keep drafting them.
That's true.
It's a very good point, for sure. Very good point. I do think the Bucs are a little bit in a win now mode type of situation, or let's see how we can make our full team better instead of just one position. But you absolutely have a really good point there, Salty Buccaneer.
Yeah.
I do not disagree with the thought process.
No, I agree. There's definitely some logic to it. Again, I love running backs. I've totally come around to the thought of don't pay him, keep drafting him. It's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of the position. So I'm with you on that. It's it is what it is. Folks, listen, we're thanks to you guys, you Pewter people are awesome. We are rapidly approaching 13,500 now. Okay. We've had like a huge influx over the last 48 hours of subscribers, thanks to you guys. But we still need you to keep going. If you have not subscribed to Pewter Report TV on YouTube, just do it. It's just hitting a button. There's no payments necessary. It's free. Hit the button and subscribe. We want to get to 14,000 by draft weekend.
It actually makes it easier for you to find us. Like you go on YouTube, bam, we're right there. And you could just go straight to Pewter Report and you don't get bothered with all this different stuff. No, just like kind of gives you like a little button on the side that says, oh, Pewter Report right then.
I would love for us to be at 13,500 by the end of the week. I think we can do it. Today's Tuesday. So let's get there. We got about 50 more to go. So if you're listening to this podcast, please, please, please hit the subscribe button. That's all we ask. And like Matt said, to leave a comment. And a like that helps boost our algorithm, get us in front of more awesome Pewter people like you.
I'll start trying to come up with some incentives too, where if we reach this, then I'll do that or this or whatever. So if you guys got some ideas, leave it in the comments as well. So bam, there you go. We're all helping each other. That's going to do it for us on today's show. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow at 4 p.m. for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.